So can you actually prove God's existence using logic and science? It's a huge question, right? Well, today on The Explainer, we're diving into a fascinating book that tries to do exactly that. We're talking about Said Hawa's Allah. He builds this incredible case for God's existence using things like physics, hard numbers from probability, and even biology. Let's see how he does.
All right, here's our roadmap for this journey. First, we'll look at the book's core principles and what Hawa even means by knowledge. Then, we'll dig into the big three arguments: evidence from the universe's beginning, the mind-boggling odds against random chance, and finally, the mystery of life itself.
Okay, so let's get right into it with the three core principles. Now, the author, Said Hawa, is really clear that this book isn't just a standalone thing. It's actually the very first step in a much bigger journey, understanding what he sees as the three essential pillars of the Islamic faith.
So this whole book, it's all about that first principle, getting to know God. And look, the goal here is super ambitious. It's not just about saying, you should believe. No, the author is trying to build a rock-solid rational case, one that's so convincing it satisfies your intellect and, ideally, wipes away any doubt using pure logic and evidence.
But hold on, before we even get to the evidence, Hawa says we need to agree on the rules of the game. He calls this the correct path to knowledge. And he asks a really fundamental question. If you can't see God, if you can't hear or touch him, then how can you possibly know he's real? What's the right way to even approach that question?
So the book lays out two roads you can take here. On one hand, you have the path of the senses. This is the show me the proof route. You have to see it, touch it, hear it for it to be real. But Hawa says, wait a minute, that's a flawed approach. Think about it. We all believe in gravity, but have you ever seen gravity? Of course not. We see its effects. And that leads to the second road, the path of signs. This is the path he says we should take. It's about using our minds, our reason, to look at the effects, the signs, all around us and figure out the cause.
And interestingly, the book argues that the Quran itself points us down this second path. It frames that demand to see God face to face as, well, kind of missing the point. It's an old argument. Instead, the text keeps saying, look around, look at the signs in the universe. The idea is that the evidence is all there, clear as day, for anyone who's actually willing to use their reason to see it.
All right, so with that framework established, we're looking for signs, not direct sight. We get to the first huge piece of evidence. This argument is all about the beginning of the universe. It boils down to one really simple but powerful claim. The universe isn't eternal. It had to have started somewhere at some time.
And where does he get this idea from? Well, you might be surprised. He pulls it straight from physics, specifically the second law of thermodynamics. You might have heard of it as entropy. Basically, it says our universe is like a giant wind-up toy. Once it's wound up, it just runs down. It's always moving from a state of useful energy and order towards, well, chaos and unusable energy.
Okay, so here's the logic, and it's pretty clever. If the universe has been around forever, then it should have run out of juice forever ago, right? It would have already reached this state scientists call heat death, where everything is the same temperature and nothing interesting can happen. No stars, no life, just nothing. But clearly that's not what's happening. Just look up. The stars are still burning, galaxies are still spinning. And according to the book, that's the smoking gun. It's proof that the clock had to have started ticking at some point.
And this quote from biologist Frank Allen just nails the book's whole approach. You see the pattern, right? Take a scientific fact that everyone agrees on, and then follow its logical conclusion. In this case, if the universe had a beginning, then it's got to have a beginner. It's a simple, powerful line of reasoning.
Okay, so if we accept that the universe had a beginning, that leads to the next massive question. What began it? This brings us to a debate as old as time itself. Intention or pure random chance? Was there a plan, or was it all just a lucky roll of the cosmic dice?
To get us thinking, Hawa uses this really great analogy. Imagine a printing press just explodes. Ink and letters fly everywhere. What are the chances that those letters would just happen to land on a page and form a beautiful, perfect poem? Our gut tells us 0 chance. And that's exactly the point he's making. Complex, meaningful order just doesn't pop out of random chaos.
He then drives this point home with another simple thought experiment. Picture this. You drop a needle, and it happens to fall perfectly through the eye of another needle lying on the table. Super unlikely, but hey, maybe possible. Now, what about a third needle falling through the eye of the second one? And a fourth, and a fifth? By the time you get to 10 needles in a row, all perfectly aligned, you'd never believe it was an accident. You'd be looking around for the magician, right? The point is simple. The more complex and ordered something is, the less likely it is to be the result of pure chance.
So, let's take that logic and apply it to life itself. The book brings up the work of a Swiss mathematician who calculated the odds of just one protein molecule, a basic building block of life, forming by random chance. The number he came up with is just staggering. It's 1 in 10 to the 160th power. That's a 1 with 160 zeros after it. I mean, we can't even comprehend a number that big. The book's conclusion? A number that small isn't a probability, it's an impossibility.
And it's not just on the tiny molecular level. The argument zooms out to our entire planet. The book lists all these so-called cosmic coincidences that make life on Earth possible. Think about it. Our planet's crust is just the right thickness. The atmosphere is just the right height. We're the perfect distance from the sun. The oxygen level is exactly right, enough to breathe, but not so much that we all burst into flames. The author argues that when you stack all these perfect conditions on top of each other, calling it all chance starts to sound a lot less believable than calling it design.
Okay, for the final piece of the puzzle, the author zooms in on the mystery of life itself, especially where we, humans, come from. And the argument here is that a purely materialistic, we're just atoms and molecules explanation, well, it just doesn't cut it.
So what the book does is it puts modern evolutionary theory side by side with the narrative from the Quran. And the Quranic story is very different. It doesn't describe a slow, gradual process. Instead, it talks about the creation of humanity as a distinct, deliberate, special event, starting from basic materials like clay. Now, to back this up, the book points to some biological data available when it was written. For instance, it brings up chromosome counts. Humans have 46. Chimpanzees have 48. The author presents this difference not as a small variation, but as a fundamental biological barrier, evidence, he argues, that we're not on the same direct ancestral branch.
The book also takes a critical look at the main engine of evolution, random mutation. And the argument goes something like this. If you look at the mutations we actually observe, they're almost always bad news. They're either harmful, or they do nothing, or they're fatal. So the question the author raises is, how can this destructive or neutral force be the creative genius responsible for building something as complex as an eyeball or a human brain?
And all of this brings us right back to where we started, the path of science. The ultimate takeaway from the book isn't that you have to blindly believe in ancient text. No, the message is that the proof is all around you. It's written into the laws of physics, into the fine-tuning of the cosmos, and even into your own DNA. The signs, it argues, are absolutely everywhere you look.
So in the end, this isn't just an intellectual game. The author doesn't want to just win a debate. The book ends by turning the tables and pointing the question right back at you, the reader. It basically asks, okay, if you find any of this convincing, what are you going to do about it? If this reality is true, what's our responsibility? And that's a powerful thought to end on, leaving us to think about where faith and reason really meet.